It's time for the 49ers Rush Podcast. And here's your host, John Chapman.
What is going on, faithful? It is absolutely to be with you guys on this Sunday. Sundays are for football. That's just all there is to it. Just because there's no football games on, that doesn't mean we're going to stop. We have to talk 49ers, and we've got a great episode for you today. The one and only Eric Crocker is going to be joining us. You know, I asked you guys a few weeks ago if there was anybody you wanted on, and listen, I'm going to listen to you guys. Y'all want somebody, I'm going to get them. Eric Crocker, the name lit up the chat, so we had an awesome conversation. I'm going to play you that here in a second. But also, another huge news, we finally have all of the details, not all the details, but the site is live, 49ersrushroadtrip.com, 49ersrushroadtrip.com. Let me show you our cool little graphic that we got going on. Here's what's going on. We're doing 3 road trips this year. 3. Chicago, Philadelphia, and the Rams. And what we're doing is we're throwing a gigantic 49ers Rush Faithful event the night before. We did a similar thing in the Super Bowl, and it had such awesome, everybody that went had a blast, made so many awesome relationships, and just trying to create a community where we can all hang out and get to know each other and have fun. So I've got podcasters lined up to present. They're going to be kind of the entertainment. So you're going to be there for a live broadcast, drinks, giveaways, jerseys, shirts, hangouts, all those and more the night before these games. So if you want to be a part of this, again, some people go to the games by themselves, some people bring their family members, all those things. This is a place for you to go the night before on the town, meet up with some awesome people, have a good time, and talk football. So head over there now. Spots are limited. I do have to tell you that. Because, again, these event spaces, they do all have capacity. And so get over there quick. There are some other podcasts that they're going to be selling some tickets as well. And just understand, I told them, yes, I'll give you the information, all that stuff, but let me talk to my people first. I'm a little selfish. And so head over there. So if you're one of those people that's like, oh man, that sounds like a cool idea, I'm not sure if I want to do it yet or not, I'm telling you right now, these are going to sell out. They're going to sell out just because we have limited spots available. So 49ersrushroadtrip.com. Head over there and you can pick. And if you're one of those people that goes to all the road games, you can buy 2, get 1 free. And so that's there for you as well. I'm so excited about that. But even more than that right now, we got to go to the man of the hour. Eric Crocker himself. Just had the wonderful opportunity of talking to him this morning. It was awesome. Really, really enjoyed it. I listened to all of his work. So without further ado, here is the man, Eric Crocker. All right, everybody knows this guy. He needs no introduction. Eric Crocker, if you listen to 49ers anything, if you want to learn about football anything, whether you're a 49ers fan or not, it doesn't matter. This guy is a must follow across all platforms. Eric Crocker, how are you doing, sir? Absolute pleasure to have you on the podcast.
Oh, man, I'm doing great. A Sunday, get to talk some 49er football. And finally, I got a chance to come on the famous John Chapman's YouTube page, man. And podcast. So I'm excited about that.
It's fun because you're a film guy. One, played in the NFL, absolute elite athlete. Me, that waved bye-bye to me long time ago. But it's fun to sit down and talk some film. We've got a lot of stuff going on, and let me just say this. Croc Talk on YouTube, okay? The Croc Talk channel is incredible. The breakdown that you just did over Ambry Thomas, I swear I could talk to you an hour and a half about Ambry Thomas. I'm a big fan, but that was incredible, man. So if you want to learn more about football, head over there, YouTube, Croc Talk, just type it in. It's the first thing that pulls up. And again, podcast people, Striking Gold podcast with Rob Louder. I listen to every episode. Big fan. So, man, let's do this first before we get to the 49ers, Eric. Because I'm curious, how in the world did you get started in broadcasting? Like, when did you make that jump to say, you know what? I want to try my hand in this because, man, you just kind of hit the ground running and have had a lot of success. And so walk us through kind of how you got started with that.
All right, so I'll try to be as quick as possible with it. But the way it kind of really all started was back in the day. People weren't really posting videos of players on Twitter or anything like that. I would post a clip. Like people would talk bad about Dante Johnson or whatever. So this goes back to like 2017 before people were really posting clips of players and breaking it down and stuff. So I would post like, a cornerback play and just explain what happened on the play. Like not really thinking anything of it, but I would just explain like, hey, this is what's going on this play. Like this is why the cornerback, he drifted too far upfield or whatever, giving up to underneath, all those type of things. I try to like just bring a different type of perspective. And then my guys from Nothing But Niners, I ended up kind of getting on with them and just talking football on YouTube. So that was my first like time being on like a platform of any sort, talking and kind of giving my perspective on things. So I guess I have to give all thanks to my Nothing But Niner guys because they kind of brought me on and kind of showed me that different side of things. And then my guy Dylan De Simone had fourth and 9,
Yes.
and it was just him at that time. So he kind of brought me on and he wanted me to write. And just like I told everybody else, I'm not a writer, but he actually got me to write some stuff. I would post clips and everything and kind of break down things of what I was seeing and kind of really started with I want to say the 2017 or 2018 Senior Bowl. And then from there, it kind of just started taking off one thing after another. And instead of just at that time kind of just going with, whatever somebody brought up to me, I started kind of figuring out that I had my own little niche. And, from a kid, like as a kid, I was in the 4th grade and I used to record 49er games on Sundays on my VHS and whatever other game that was on that day. And I would rewatch it throughout the week and just really kind of obsessed over football. And that kind of started at a young age. So just that side of things and kind of I guess, utilizing or bringing in like a different perspective, especially from my playing days. And I think if people, they look at me like, oh, Croc, he played in the league and this and that. But really, I'm a fan of football. And I just kind of, as a fan, I like to talk to other fans and kind of just give my perspective of what's going on in the game. So I try not to come off as like this know-it-all or, oh, I did this and I did that. It's really more so of, hey, like, this is just my opinion on this, and I can tell you why this happened, or and why this is challenging to somebody, or when it starts to come talk about their movement skills and things like that, what might hurt a guy or affect a guy, or why everybody loves these big long corners, but I don't love them as much, and I talk about why. So I just try
Which
to
is
bring that
funny
type of
because you're a
perspective.
big long corner. Like you're over 6 foot. So like,
Yeah, 6'2", 200 pounds.
yeah, why are you hating on yourself, man?
Because I think I knew my like what how my body reacted to certain things, and like now receivers, they're not just these huge receivers that are playing, right. Like you're seeing a lot of 5'11", 6 foot guys that are really twitchy and sudden. Like my body style is more suited to play against the 6'3", 215 pound guy, and that's no problem. But when you start having these quicker, shiftier guys, and now my change of direction has to be a lot better. My hips, and I have to have more fluidity. Those things are challenges usually for guys my size and bigger. But if you find somebody that has like elite movement skills and that type of height, I think that's when you have a special corner. And I try to identify that as well.
And man, it's interesting you talk about like the height characteristics because the 49ers, very well known for these big, tall corners, they have taken a dramatic shift. None of their prominent kind of top 6 guys at the cornerback position are over 6 foot. A couple 5'11" guys, but there's no Richard Sherman here anymore. There's no 6'3". I think Dante Johnson might be in there, but I wouldn't put him in my top 6. He's kind of just a safety belt for all of the positions across there. So it does seem like there's a little bit of a transition taking place in the coaching room and the personnel department at the cornerback position. Obviously switching from a little bit of a cover 3 to a little bit more quarter system. Not that they're doing it all the time, but that has started to take place. And
Yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah. So walk us through kind of the change that you've seen just in the past year with the 49ers secondary.
I think having the guys that aren't as big typically gives you more versatility with your play calling. If you want to go to a cover 4 type of scheme, typically you want more fleet-footed guys who can play off as well as play press. So to me, the one thing I try to always, and I've been asking, and everybody gets so enamored with the big corners, is can a guy cover? So if he can cover well, then I don't care if he's 5'10". I don't care if he's 6'3". Like, can he cover? To me, that should be the priority. And I think when you start to kind of look into guys and you start to look at the things at least that I value, which is quick footed, change of direction, fluidity and all that. Typically, you get it in a smaller body. Now, again, there are rare guys and guys that can be 6'3" and still move like a 5'10" guy. I think Keller Witherspoon was one that moved extremely well for his size, but a lot of times they don't move that well. And then when you start to face these quicker, faster receivers that are coming into the league, it's harder for those bigger guys. And now I think around the league, you're starting to see a lot of teams, they went to that Seattle cover 3 scheme with guys at the line of scrimmage and kind of press bailing out. And now you're kind of seeing a transition into like a cover 4 where now corners it's not such a demand to be big, right? Now you still can have that guy, but it's not as much as demand. And I think guys like Jair Alexander and even Denzel Ward when he was drafted, those type of guys I think will kind of start to filter back into the league and be a little bit more demand than what they were over the last 8-9 years.
Right. And now let's take that and let's apply some of this to our third round, cornerback Ambry Thomas, who I really, really like. But you brought up like hip fluidity and those things. I didn't think that he had the best hips. I kind of gave him in the B grade there. He's a little heavy footed on some of his transitions, but because of the physicality that he brings, despite his size, his arm length's incredible. He's able to stay in phase really, really well. Like I don't think that he fits the mold of some of those Denzel Ward, Jair Alexanders, in and out of their breaks and things like that. But he does a hellacious job of always keeping his hand on that wide receiver, especially in the first 5 yards. I think he gets in trouble after that. But the initial part of his coverage, and he plays press a lot. I'm curious to see where he's going to wind up. So what are your initial thoughts and assessment on Ambry Thomas for the people that haven't watched your breakdown?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I thought that was intriguing as well. He is a heavy-handed cornerback. He's a guy that likes to be physical at the line of scrimmage. The tough thing, especially with, defensive schemes like that, is like you can't really see the versatility, right? Like I did a breakdown on Lenoir from Oregon, and you get to see more of what you're looking for, a guy that can play press as well as off coverage, and you can really get a read on, like, okay, I wish he did this better, or he does this very well, whatever. With Thomas, it was just press. Everything was so much press, and it's like, gosh, I want to be able to give a full analysis and see how he plays from off. I think there were a couple reps where he played off and where he was challenged, but for the most part, everything was just press, and a lot of man, like just a ton of man. So I think the one thing I tried to take into consideration is, all right, Croc, if he is somebody who just loves to play at the line of scrimmage and his movement skills say he probably is somebody that you want to play more at the line of scrimmage. Now, I have noticed, even if you want to go to a quarter system and the cover 4 scheme, you still can play that from the line of scrimmage. And I think a lot of people think, well, if it's quarters, you just got to be off. And it's like, no, as long as you're reading, 2-to-1, and you understand like the leverage that you need to use with that type of play, then, you'll be fine. Now, will the 49ers force him to play off? We'll see, because certain teams just like things to be played a certain way. But you got to go back to 2011, 12, 13, and you look at Fangio. When they got Chris Culliver played the same scheme, but he played more at the line of scrimmage.
Yep.
And that's where he was utilized more. So, we'll see exactly what they do with Ambry Thomas. Again, I was with you. Like, I think he's definitely more suited to be a bigger physical corner at the line of scrimmage. And he's not like overly big, but he has decent size, and just his movement skills say more, okay, he's more of a press guy. But I thought from off coverage, he was fine as long as he can anticipate. We'll see how he has to react in space. It just wasn't something that I saw too often on film.
I think it's one of those things too. Like, if you look at where he was drafted and what the 49ers did in free agency, the great news is he doesn't have to play right away. I think he's going to be kick returner day one. I think that's where he is, be on some special team stuff, but he gets to sit. Now, I think he can compete with Emmanuel Mosley. I think that's going to be a fun competition. But, man, with the 49ers and kind of how they've kind of scripted things, they really like to kind of, give the veteran the kind of, the doubt and let them get in there and see what goes on. Do you see Ambry pressing for a starting job in training camp?
I think ideally for an NFL team, you would like a 3rd round pick. If they can get in there and press for a position, a starting spot, you would like that. We saw that with Fred Warner, right? Came into the league and, right away he was starting next to, Reuben Foster or what was supposed to be, running around making plays in number 48. So ideally your third rounders, you want to see them on the field if they can right away. We'll see if Ambry Thomas can beat out Emmanuel Mosley. I think that there will definitely be a competition there. More so than the other side with Verrett. I think if I just had to guess, Verrett, he's just going to be the starter.
Yeah.
But the other side, I think they want competition there because, and I go back to the end of last year, I know Emmanuel Mosley came off an injury late, but one thing I did see, if you're just coming off an injury and you can't play, then all right, we're just not either going to suit him, we're either not going to suit him, or he's going to be on the roster or on a 53-man or 46-man roster or whatever on game day. He's going to be active for emergency purposes. But they actually had Mosley active and playing, but they started the Keller Witherspoon. That was interesting to me. And then also in the nickel where Mosley plays, he can play in the nickel as well. They went and started Dante Johnson.
Yeah, that made me mad that game. Yeah.
And I was wondering, I'm like, okay, they went with these two guys. Well, maybe they just don't want to play Mosley. But then I see him running down on special teams. So once I saw him on special teams, I'm just like, okay, there's a little bit more to it. Where, maybe he's just not 100% the guy that's going to be starting out there that people think. And they brought him back. They kind of structured his, whether, it was like a 1-year thing or whatever. Then they kind of extended it. It's 2 years. It's probably really just 1 year type money. But it wasn't a lot of money.
No.
I don't think that's starting cornerback money, making $4 million this year or whatever it is. That says like, well, we want you to start. But I definitely think there's going to be a big-time competition at that cornerback position.
I do love how he picked number 41 for rookie training camp, too. So it's like the message that's coming across just like, hey, and if you watched any of the rookie press conference, I know you were there at some of them. Like, I love my play. Like, once I learned this playbook, it's over. Like, he is coming in, supreme alpha male, which I love from the cornerback position and secondary guys. Like, I love that dog mentality, which he has in spades. So I'm pretty excited to see what he's going to bring because, his talk and his play on the field, they match. And they're both abrasive and just come and get some, which I feel like he's already kind of turning into a 49ers fan favorite. Those rookie press conferences were rough, man. That was some bad audio. And I know it takes a while to develop, the press conference and handling those things, but I felt like he came off just like, all right, I'm here. Let's go. That matters though, right? In the secondary, having that attitude, right? Where were you? Were you a trash talker, Eric?
Oh yeah, I was a big time trash talker. I talk so much. I was just telling somebody the other day, like, you can't find a picture with me wearing a mouthpiece because I wanted to be able to talk trash at the drop of a dime. So, it's all fun. I think, like me, and I think even with Ambry Thomas, he seems like the ultimate competitor. And I think that's what drove me to even be able to reach the levels that I did, like just my competitiveness. I think Ambry Thomas has a lot of that and just way more natural ability than I had running in the 4.3s. So I think guys like that, when they have that mentality, they have that type of attitude, how he carries himself. I think those are guys that you want to bet on. One thing that I noticed when I was watching his film against Notre Dame, him getting guys lined up in the proper spots. And I posted that to Twitter and stuff. And I think there's probably a lot of people that don't think much of it. But to me, that says a lot. I was somebody, I knew my job. I knew what I was supposed to do. I didn't quite know exactly what other people were supposed to do all the time, right? When you see somebody out there and they're getting everybody lined up, and then they, not only that, they do their job on top of having that, attitude and mindset that he has, I think that's kind of like the recipe right there for success. And, Jim Nagy, he jumped in my mentions and was like, hey, we had a top, 50 grade on him, and he was going to be the number one corner on our senior board roster if he would have came back. So I think there are guys that really like him. And I think it sounds more and more like, I don't want to call him a steal because you get drafted where you get drafted and whatever. But I think more and more him going to the 49ers was a really good pick for the Niners. And obviously we'll see how it plays out.
And, I think another thing, too, the 49ers traded up to get Trey Sermon. They gave up both their fourths. So with the 49ers sitting at that number 102 at the end of the third round, they had no draft capital to jump up. Like, at that point, they had no fourth rounders. They did have some fifths that they could have, whatever. But, yeah, like, it's always interesting where the 49ers take a guy. Like, you trade up to take Trey Lance, all right? They love that guy. You fall back to take Aaron Banks. All right, what does that tell? What's the story there? You trade up for, Trey Sermon. You stay put for Ambry Thomas. And so, I feel like it tells a little bit of a story with what this front office, values these guys at. And I don't think that's a slight against Ambry Thomas, but it is interesting. Now, here's a question. I'm sure you get this a lot. Eric, in your playing days, whether college or NFL, who was that one guy that was the most difficult for you to kind of cover and gave you kind of the most challenges? Does anybody stand out?
It's always the smaller, twitchy, or quicker guys, because if they beat you off the line of scrimmage, they kind of speed up your time clock, and your time clock is just kind of, how can I explain it? Like something that where you're kind of at ease, right? It's like a quarterback, right? When the quarterback's sitting back in the pocket and he has time, he's comfortable. He can make that throw because he can just comfortably go through his reads and whatnot. If you have a quarterback that's constantly under duress, now he starts kind of pressing a little bit, right? And maybe throwing passes quicker than he wants to. And then it's like, well, why did you do that? And kind of a lot of the technique and the progressions kind of go out the window. Well, when you're playing these smaller guys and if they beat you off the line of scrimmage, immediately your clock kind of goes off and man, I have to make sure that I hurry to get in position. Now all your technique goes out the window, and now you're liable to get beat anyway, whether he wants to push up field, come back underneath, whether he push up field, sits it down, if he gives you a half step and then you stutter, then he goes again. All those things, you're not reading the guy anymore. You're just kind of out there running around and kind of playing. And the smaller guys, and everybody wants these big receivers and stuff, and those guys are terrific as well. They're really good, obviously. But the smaller ones were the harder ones to be consistently in position to cover them.
I want to make note for the record here that Eric did not mention one single player by name, which means he controlled everybody day one. That's just what we have to go by. I love it. Now you're talking about struggling with smaller guys. Let's talk about the other rookie that we got with Lenoir. I think that Lenoir is probably going to end up being that slot backup role, depending on where Mosley goes and all those things. But, if John Chapman was in control of the depth chart, I'm going to ask you this in the future as well. Man, I want Ambry Thomas outside, and I want Demo inside for this, their rookie years, because I think that's their best chance to play. Do you see Lenoir as a slot corner? Do you think that's where he should be? Or because he's so physical, again, where he played with Oregon, he should be an outside guy?
I think ideally you just want guys that can play both, right? And he definitely has the ability to play both. The things I look for, even from a coverage standpoint, but I think the physicality part matters so much for a nickel guy. When you watch Kwan Williams, he's there. You play against teams like the Rams who run a lot out of 11 personnel. You got to be able to defeat blocks, get off blocks, go in, not be afraid to tackle, get dirty, go out of your way to make tackles. And Lenoir consistently does that. We did a film study on him yesterday on YouTube, and that was one thing that really popped out was he constantly was throwing guys out the way to try to go get to the ball. And if he is going to be a guy that plays more in the nickel, that's something you want. Now, you also have to be really smart playing the nickel because now you have to understand how to use your leverage more and understand the spacing because it's a lot different. Guys have more of a two-way go on you with all the space to the sideline. So, your twitch has to be a little bit more on point. Your change of direction, you're going to be playing against those smaller receivers, right? Because usually on the outside, you see a lot of bigger guys at X and even Z sometimes. But, when you're in the nickel spot, you see more of the Cole Beasleys and stuff, and you have to kind of understand your leverage and match their change of direction as well. So it can be a bit of a tougher transition for some guys who have primarily been outside guys. But I think Lenoir, when you kind of look at his makeup, whether it's mental makeup or his body, I think he definitely has the ability to be able to play inside.
Yeah, that's where I want to see him. Again, you brought up, Kwan Williams, Shark, right? Just that guy defies all odds with his body type. He doesn't care. He'll get in the box and mix it up with anybody. Very, very aggressive. And so, we kind of got to see. It's easy to look at these guys' height, weight, speed, and kind of what they did in college. Both of them are going to be playing in different schemes for sure. But, man, there's a lot to like because going into the draft, there were two positions that most of the fans thought were going to be addressed huge: cornerbacks and wide receivers. Everybody assumed those were the ones we were going to go with. And sure enough, we don't even touch wide receivers. Okay. And so let's transition a little bit and let's talk, man. Eric Crocker, right now, if you had to guess, who is the starting number 3 wide receiver day 1, week 1 of the NFL on this roster? Because I'm not sure who that's going to be. What do you say?
If I just had to guess, I'd say Richie
Yeah.
James. And I'd be happy, for Richie James. He is someone who, when given the opportunity, he's been productive. For whatever reason, those opportunities have been kind of slim for him. And he's actually on the field a lot, but he's either one, not targeted, or he's just not a part of the progression, or it's a run play because he does give you a lot of effort in the run game and blocking. So obviously I think people will point to the Packers game last year where he had one of the more explosive 49er games from a receiver in recent years. Now that might not be exactly who he is, but it just shows that if given the opportunity, he can be a productive receiver. And he came in, I think was it his rookie year where Trent Taylor missed a game. It was against the Cowboys, and it was Jimmy Garoppolo's first start. And he came in and he made a couple catches, and then I kind of did this little chart on him, kind of moving forward, and kind of showed over. I think that preseason he had 16 catches, over 100 yards. There were only 2 passes that were where he was targeted that he didn't catch. Every time he's been on the field, he's made big plays. He's made kind of plays over the middle or whatever. And for whatever reason though, and I understand the politics of the NFL and how all that works. Once you start drafting other guys, you want those guys playing. You draft a guy second round with Deebo Samuel, you draft a guy first round. Those guys are going to play and they're going to be prioritized more. And it's just hard to kind of really get over that hump of being a late round pick and the politics that kind of comes with that.
I do think it is interesting though, because Kyle Shanahan, I feel like he's a Richie James guy. Down the stretch, I think 3 out of 4 of the last games when we had all the Deebo injury and everything else, Richie James was out there before KB. And so I'm not trying to jump into KB talk here, but it totally was seen hey, we want you to take this job. And then he had the fumble at the punt return. So then they yanked him and put in River Craycraft. He had a couple false starts on 3rd down. It was just man, come on. We want you to take this next step. And we've seen the explosiveness as you've talked about. I also love that you brought up run blocking. He had a better run blocking grade than Kendrick Bourne the last 3 years. It's not about size. It's about effort a lot of times in the run game, and he has that. Now, I'm hoping, and this is a Christmas wish, I guess you could say, but Jalen Hurd, is there a chance, man? Come on, make me feel good as a Jalen Hurd president of the fan club. Tell me there's a chance this guy's finally going to play. We got to see him. Tell me, Eric. Tell me some good news, man.
I think they are in position to where they are in a wait and see type, deal, where it's just all right, we're this is the final straw though. It's gotta be. You haven't played in the first 2 years. Let's see how he comes in. Now he is coming off of an ACL injury that happened in training camp, so maybe he's ready right now and running around and running routes. We'll find out. But this is it. This is it for him. And hopefully they've just been freakish injuries, right? He had a back injury, then he tore his ACL. Hopefully it's just freakish things, and maybe a Frank Gore, right? Who I think I saw tore 2 ACLs in 8-month span in college, and then went on to be extremely productive in the NFL, one of the most productive running backs of all time. And I'm not saying Hurd's going to be that guy, but maybe it's just freakish things, and he just gets past it, and the 49ers are able to finally utilize him. I would say that they have some type of hope for that if they didn't draft a receiver. I think they want him. I think they look at their receiver group and say, look, if these guys are healthy, we have the guys that we need to be able to run the offense the way we want to run it. I think it's just on him to just be healthy. And I'd say I'm going to say he plays this year. I'm going to say that, how big of a role he'll have, I'm not sure. But I have faith that he'll be on that field come week 1.
Man, that would be, because I do think the draft was kind of designed. I put this out on Twitter yesterday that Kyle Shanahan, he's lost 2 out of the last 3 seasons because of a quarterback injury. Last year he lost 5 centers right before training camp. Running backs, 4 injured every single year. All these different spots, and so I felt like this draft was to address, hey, injuries aren't stopping us anymore. We have depth at running back. We've got 2 quarterbacks. We went and addressed the offensive line. The defensive line, we've got 10 deep. We got 10 guys we believe in. The only position that wasn't addressed is that wide receiver, as we talked about. And so that's going to be interesting. obviously there's going to be injuries. Hopefully nothing like last year, but it's going to be like, I don't know, man. I feel like what Kyle Shanahan has done is built this safety net around this roster that says one or two injuries aren't taking us out of this anymore.
Yeah.
Now, real quick, I'd be remiss if we did not talk at all about the quarterback. You were one of the few, hyping the Trey Lance train from early on. Tell us why you like this guy so much and why you thought that it was a fit over the other quarterbacks available at number 3.
So I will start by saying, like, I was a Justin Fields guy. Like, if it were up to me, but I had hit Justin Fields at QB1, and I just didn't understand. Like, when you just look at the talent that somebody possesses, I thought he kind of really displayed and showed like everything that I want to see from my quarterback. So obviously there are things, and I'm a big person that's on like, what can you teach, what can't you teach? I think the things that you can teach, I feel like he can improve on. So I was really big on him. Now, even over Trevor Lawrence. But now, kind of, moving on to Trey Lance, and why I thought it was Trey Lance, and I told people, and I like Trey Lance. I loved everything about everything I heard and I understand like the mindset behind these guys. All right, so leading up to the draft, I started to tell people like, man, if I have the football mind that I think, then the 49ers are going to take Trey Lance. And my reasoning for that was there are too many people that watch a player and they watch him for what he is. And then it's just like, oh, well, he's going to come to the NFL and that's what he is. And it's like, no, like guys do get better, So again, start to go back to what can you teach? What can't you teach? Right. So when you see the ability that Trey Lance has on film, the ability to be able to make a play on the move, or really the ability to play from a pocket, make all the throws, right? Like, has the big arm, has the athleticism, 6'4", 225 pounds. Like, those are things like I can't really teach that, right? But what can I teach? Well, there's an occasional miss here and there, right? Like, well, okay, I can teach that. Well, what can't I teach, right? Well, man, he does an amazing job of taking care of the football. Like, Kyle Shanahan, I'm pretty sure, prioritizes that. I think the 49ers lost several games last year with Nick Mullins just because he turned the football over so much. 49ers probably have had about 4 games that they lost, all because of that. Like, just 2, 3, 4 turnovers by the quarterback position. So I think he like, taking care of the ball, being able to play, at every level, being able to make throws at every level, the physicality part and how he helps in the run game. I thought all those things fit. Playing under center, coming from a team that huddled up, which these teams don't huddle up, but can spit out long, verbiage plays
Right.
and get everybody lined up, and then, set his protection and things like those were all great. But that wasn't the main thing that I thought was going to be the reason why. I think all those definitely played a factor into it. But it was this. When you start to find out who this person is, and this is the big part, like on why people become bust and why guys don't make it in the NFL and stuff like that, because these are the things that are kind of hard to understand and quantify with players sometimes. But the mindset that he has, right? A guy that, is going to John Beck and saying, hey, don't sugarcoat it with me. Tell me exactly where I need to get better. A guy that's going out of his way to contact, scouts and front office people or whatever to say, what's your scouting report on me so I can work on these things, right? Like, just somebody that has that relentless, mindset to continuously get better. A guy that as a true freshman, while he was redshirting, was watching and breaking down NFL film. A guy who didn't play this year, got with, a quarterback or whatever in the league and was going over like, a script and, okay, on this day we're going through this day we're going through that. At the end of the week, comparing notes. Like, when you have that type of mindset, and then Daniel Jeremiah sits down with him for an hour and is talking about how this guy was wise beyond his years, like, I had no, like, once you start piecing all these things together and you hear these things to go with the ability that he has. That's why you see guys like Josh Allen end up being extremely well, regardless of the issues that Josh Allen had coming out of college. That's why you see a guy like Mahomes excel, because he has that relentless work ethic as well. I think when you look at Trey Lance, the person that he is, the leader that he is, playing in the game that he didn't have to play in, like, just all these things, I'm like, this is a Kyle Shanahan guy. This is the mindset that he wants. This is what he wants in his leader. This is what he wants as his quarterback. And also, he was 19 years old last time he played. Let's work on those things. Let's improve on those things. And I think we have a big time player. And you're taking a gamble and you're betting on a lot of upside. But I bet on a person with that mindset over a person that says, you know, I can't have a chip on my shoulder, and I don't really care, or your dad says you don't care if you win a Super Bowl or not. You don't really, that doesn't make you, all those things. I want somebody that thinks like me. And I think when I'm hearing everything about Trey Lance, I mean, he's like, he has my competitiveness, but he's smarter than I ever was, has more physical capabilities than I ever had. Like, those are the things where I'm like, that he's going to be the pick. He's going to be the pick. And I've kind of fell in love with him, throughout the process. And I think that's maybe what Kyle Shanahan and those guys did too.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. And now it's funny because there wasn't so much out there on Trey Lance, like the high school background and all that stuff from where he was in Minnesota, and like just so young. He's the youngest rostered quarterback in the NFL currently. The youngest, just turned 21, all those different things. But, The Athletic came out with a report back about his high school days playing basketball. And, the 4 overtime game that took place in Minnesota, whatever, the high school game. But the thing was, he airballed a shot in overtime, and they called a timeout, and they were down 3. And Trey Lance goes to the coach, and this is from the coach's perspective. Hey, I want the ball in my hands. I want to shoot. Like, I love that Jordan, Mamba mentality. This is mine. Everything goes with me. And the fact that he's 21, just turned 21. Kyle's going to have a heyday with this kid. I really do believe it. Yeah. And who knows if anybody can get him to that, top tier level that he's available, can get to his potential. I love this front office. I love this coaching staff. I think it's going to be us, or be the 49ers. So we'll have to see what happens there, man.
I think one thing that we are kind of forgetting about too, like Kyle Shanahan is really hard on his quarterbacks, right? Like he demands a lot of his quarterbacks. So I think when you are somebody like that and have that mentality, right? You're the head coach and you have this high demand. I think it's really cool to have a player that has the same demands for himself and wants to execute at that higher level for himself. And those things are hard to find. And even with his quarterback coach, Quincy Avery, coming out and saying he was the brightest quarterback he's ever worked with. And that's Avery, who's been working with Justin Fields since he was in middle school. So a lot to like about it.
I'm excited, man. Let me ask you this. This will be the last question, then I'll let you plug your stuff a little bit more. If you had to put the over-under at how many starts Trey Lance gets in 2021, what's that kind of number that comes to your head? And this is rough because there's so many conditions, Jimmy G, health, playoff seeding, all those things. But just off the top of your head, Eric, what comes to mind when you say how many games do you think Trey Lance starts 2021?
I'd say 7.
7. Ooh.
Wait, excuse me. Hold on. It's weird because of the way that the schedule is this year. So many games now.
Right.
But so after that, so 6 minus 17, 11 games.
11 games. So you got them coming in after the bye week.
Yeah.
All right, man. I love it. Colts. Oh my God. Could you imagine Trey Lance against the Colts, Sunday Night Football, DeForest Buckner? Oh my God. That'd be incredible, man. Eric, thank you so much for your time. Obviously, everybody, I asked my listeners, who do you want to listen to? Like, who should I interview? There was no competition. Eric Crocker, top of the list. Eric, plug your stuff for the ones that perhaps don't already follow you, where they can find you and all the projects, because you got a lot going on right now. How can they jump on board the Eric Crocker ship?
Yeah, definitely. I'll plug a couple things. Obviously the Twitter account at Eric_Crocker. You can find me there, and I put my thoughts on there, as well. And then my YouTube page that I've been building now, I started a couple months ago, and it's been growing fast. So on YouTube, that's Croc Talk TV. So I think if you just type that in, you'll see it. And then my Patreon account, which they kind of go hand in hand. The Patreon is going to be a little bit more like the deep, in-depth stuff. But that's patreon.com/Croc Talk.
Yeah, it's awesome, man. Again, just want to say thank you for your time, Eric. And, man, thank you for educating us, help us understand this game a lot more. It makes better fans. And so just really appreciate your time. And, man, we'll be following you wherever you go, brother.
All right, appreciate you. Thanks for having me on.
All right, man, that was fun. Like, I was there when the interview happened this morning, and then I got to re-listen to it and, chit-chat with you guys in the chat, which has been just an absolute blast. But, man, just shout out to Croc. He just does – there's nobody that does what he does. Such a unique perspective being a player and coming in. And, it's interesting when you look at the NFL, they love former players as, analysts and commentators and broadcasters and all those things. And I can say from my time as a coach, there were at one point 4 separate coaches on our staff that had played in the NFL. Of those 4, 3 were the worst coaches on our staff, and it wasn't even close. Just because you've been there and you've done it doesn't mean you can break things down. One of the worst coaches I ever worked with, I don't want to throw his name out there. He was a really good dude, a great guy. Still consider him a friend, but he was just a bad coach because at the end of the day, the kids would be like, all right, how do I do this? And basically for him, he was such a freak athlete. It's like, oh, you just go and you just do those things. It takes somebody to understand the intricacies of, the steps to be able to do that. Some people are just gifted and they're just going to show up like Randy Moss. He's not going to stretch. He's not going to watch tape. That's not who he is. An amazing personality. He's going to show up and he's just going to ball because he's a freak and he's better than everybody. But sometimes there are people where, they're going to have to understand the steps 1 through 10 in order to get this play done. And whenever you can combine that elite athleticism and all those things. But anyway, all that to be able to say, I love that he's played at that level and can break it down. Absolute fun. It was so fun. So that's going to do it for us today. We do have a lot of stuff going on. I know it's the off season now, but there's still a lot going on. One, we just loaded a Jalen Moore Patreon breakdown over at patreon.com 49ers Rush Podcast. You can head over there and check that one out. I wanted to talk to Eric before I did my next one with Demo Lenoir, the cornerback out of Oregon. And so I wanted to get his thoughts on it, and I'm going to incorporate some of his notes into my film. So that's going to be the next breakdown that I get out in the next day or two. And then, of course, got to talk about, man, this is the big one, the 49ers Rush road trip. I'm putting my name on this. This is a big deal. This is kind of a dream come true type thing for me. And a big reason why I'm able to do this, I'm not making any money on this. I'm going to be losing money on this endeavor. But a big reason why we're able to accomplish this and set all this stuff up is because of Patreon. And the big reason why we push that. I tell you guys this all the time. The Patreon supporters, that goes into the podcast. That's not buying John Chapman new shoes or anything like that. It goes into the podcast. And so I do want to say thank you to all the people that have supported this podcast on patreon.com. It's allowing us to increase and expand our reach and build this community, which is what this podcast has always been about. I love football more than any person that I've ever met. But watching football by yourself and all those things, it only goes so far. The community, sharing it with your family, friends, things like that. That's what has turned this podcast into kind of what it is today. So anyway, just want to say thank you guys. Really do appreciate it. Head over there, 49ersrushroadtrip.com. Get your tickets if you're going to be in Philly, Chicago, or Los Angeles. That's where we're going to be. Come hang out with us, have some drinks. It's going to be a blast. Thank you guys. And as always, stay strong, faithful.